It's interesting because a lot of what you're saying is it's predicated on what the Ravens do.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about the Ravens because I think if you look at anybody in the NFL over the last 3 or 4 years, I think a lot of people would say, the Ravens have probably had the best roster, top to bottom, over anybody over that time frame. And it's been a long time since they've gotten to the promised land. Super Bowl 47, the Harbaugh, where John and the Ravens took down Jim and the 49ers 34-31 in New Orleans. And that game on Sunday night, when they were up 40-25 in the fourth quarter, and they ended up losing 41-40. That was the 17th time under John Harbaugh that the Ravens had blown a double-digit second half lead. That's the most by any head coach going back to at least 1991. So if we're talking about Mike Tomlin and being under pressure for not winning and getting back to another Super Bowl in a long, long time, where's the pressure on John Harbaugh? Because I kind of get the same sense that if they don't break through this year, and again, he's like Tomlin, he'll get another job if he wants one immediately. Like, I don't think I think there might be less of a lag for Harbaugh than there would be for Tomlin. But there is a sense that you guys got to get it done this year, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think we forget. You remember back the year they drafted Lamar, there were calls for his job. He was about to get run out of town, and then he made the call to go from Flacco to Lamar, and that revived his career. And so I think the Ravens are not as skittish about moving on if things just really don't look good. But you can't look at them as being so close and on the doorstep this many times as being as trigger happy about moving on from their coach. But then the stat you alluded to, and then the stat about, I think since 2020, the 8 times they've had a win potential of 90% later in the fourth quarter, and they've lost, and it's like they've done that over 3 times more than the next closest team.
Although I got to be honest, I love stats. I hate that win probability stat because they only show up when the other team wins, they lose. I'm like, then it must not be a very good stat because I see this all the time.
Well, don't even say win probability. Like games that finishing, like squeezing the life out of someone up. I don't care if it's Josh Allen. You're up 15. I'd rather run ISO dive, take every bit of the play clock than do what they did, because you can't. It's hard to live with yourself. It's hard to sleep at night when you give away games in that manner, and they've done that multiple times since COVID, since the 2020 season. It's just a weird thing for such a dominant team, such a top echelon team, to then have the bottom fall out like that in critical moments. It to me signals just like a weird, I don't know if it's like an internal sphincter tightening thing that they clench up in these weird moments. Derrick Henry was averaging almost 10 yards a carry. Yeah. And he's taking the blame, rightfully so, as an accountable veteran for fumbling the ball. But they couldn't be stopped. And so I we give Josh Allen all the credit, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for the perseverance and the throws he made and all that stuff. I don't want to put him in a position to even do that. And we do that by the way that we adjust our contextually game plan and play calling to the moment. And in that moment, it felt like they got a little conservative. In that moment, it felt like they left just points and opportunities on the field. And again, this is a trend now. It's a trend. It's not just one-offs. It's a trend. And so that to me is concerning. I think they'll be fine though. And this is the part where legacies get talked about. The guys who've gone against Mahomes, it's like the going against Jordan in his prime. It's like if you get to these moments and you don't capitalize, history just thinks of it in such a different light, and if you don't break through. And that goes for Josh versus Lamar, Josh versus Pat, Lamar versus Pat, and Lamar versus Josh. These guys are just butting heads. And then ultimately, the history books will be told by the winners, by the victors. Unfortunately for the Ravens, they've been on the cusp. They've been on the doorstep more times than not, and they have not gotten it done. So to me, the heat is hotter because the organization has been more willing, I would like to believe, than Pittsburgh to move on. And they have gotten closer to the doorstep than the Steelers have.
So I guess as a player, that stat, 17 blown double-digit second-half leads. As a player, what does that say to you about what this team is in critical situations. Because you know as well as anybody, you can have all the numbers you want up and down the field. It's how you manage situational football. Down by 2, up by 3 or 4, trying to run out the clock with 2 minutes to go. Like seeing that number from Harbaugh, whom we all agree is a fantastic head coach. Why do you think that's been a thing for him?
Well, listen, ultimately Harbaugh isn't on the field. And so part of it, yes, is prep and the way that they go about situational football. I mean, Bill Belichick, despite his recent, change into college and that's a whole other story.
As a TCU alum, I don't think you're too upset about how that game went.
I felt like I had to bring it up. We won't belabor the point. But when I played there in 2019, the whole crux of the program was situational football. And they didn't blow a whole lot of leads because in every facet, we are trying to arbitrage these moments where we are just not giving the game away. You can't win until you prevent yourself from losing is what he would say. And that comes in the form of when I'm up 15, my play calling has to change completely. Not to conservatism, but to being efficient and holding onto the ball and taking advantage of opportunities. Are we going deep? Not unless they really give it to us. Are we doing things that were complicated? We're going to run our offense, but we are going to manage all of these small little moments. We are going to reduce our margin for error to as little as possible because the game's won. Like, yes, the game's not over till the clock strikes 000, but the game's won if you do your job, if you take care of the ball. Lamar's had problems with fumbles when they've been up, with interceptions when they've been up. This is now Derrick Henry, who's not known for fumbling, and I don't believe it's a problem for him. Now fumbled when they were up. I've seen offensive line breakdowns when they were up. And so ultimately, does the team rally and understand, hey, we're 95% of the way there. Let's finish the damn job. And finishing is an attitude. It's a strategy, and it's talked about and prepped and planned before. And again, New England, I think, is one of the best at it, where they both capitalize on teams who didn't know how to finish, and they ultimately knew how to finish and squeeze everything out of the ball until the game was truly over.
Yeah, and just we looked at the Steelers schedule, looking at the Ravens schedule. They lose week 1 at Buffalo, home for Cleveland. Then they've got Detroit, and I get it. Detroit didn't look good, but there were a lot of reasons that might have been a really bad game for the Lions. They won the last 3 games up at Lambeau Field. Micah Parsons, everything. Everything sort of went against them.
They're missing an interior center and guard.
Yeah, and then they got to go to Kansas City. Then they got to play the Texans and the Rams in back-to-back weeks. That's a tough stretch for the Ravens to start the season with.
I'm not worried about the Ravens. I'm really not. Okay. Not in the regular season. Listen. It's funny, people were, they're applauding Buffalo. The Ravens just ran it at will up until they didn't. So I don't know who else is going to stop that. I don't know who else is going to have a better time trying to stop that. It's a world-beating offense, and I think still very good defense. And so again, not overreacting. We're talking about long-term. We're talking about championship pedigree stuff. The regular season, I'm not worried about them at all. They're going to continue to do what they do. They're not going to try to over-course correct. And then Derrick Henry, unless he gets hurt, Lamar Jackson, unless he gets hurt, they're still going to be this dynamic duo. I mean, some of the play calls, some of the execution was just impeccable against Buffalo. Buffalo their defense didn't look like a top unit that they struggled in the recent past, but Baltimore did whatever they wanted to do until they just did some really inopportune things.
Well, to that point, I thought what Cam Newton said recently was very true. The only team that can beat the Ravens is the Ravens. And we saw that in the AFC Championship game a couple of years ago where they went
at home against Kansas City.
When they went away with their bread and butter running, they started throwing it all over the field. Like you said, they did whatever they wanted to until those clutch situations where they made some mistakes. I really feel over the last couple of seasons that you can apply that to 2 teams, the Ravens and the Chiefs. The only teams that can really beat them are themselves. And, people are going to say, why are you saying that about the Chiefs after what happened to the Chargers? Well, I mean, they missed an extra point. They had to chase the 2. They lose Xavier Worth. Like, there's all these kind of things. I give Herbert all the credit in the world. But at the end of the day, if the Chiefs are clean and the Ravens are clean, they're the 2 toughest teams. And Philadelphia, those are the 3 toughest teams in the NFL.
Chiefs, to me, they're losing some of that luster. And Xavier Worthy getting hurt on a mesh route gets from his friendly fire is a tough look. Dislocated shoulder. We'll see how he comes back from that. But let's talk about just how the offense looks post Tyreek Hill. That's to me the story, because they cannot take the top off of a defense. And we've talked about last year, you and I did a show together where I still had ultimate confidence in them because they figure things out, they adapt. That is still their DNA. That's still their MO. But ultimately, 5-yard spot routes up and down the field, Pat running for his life, doing levitational throws to convert third downs. It looks great. I don't know how they're going to do that again for 17 games. They've got to get Rashee Rice back. They've got to get Hollywood Brown going. Travis Kelce's engaged and on his way out. The offensive line is a problem. They got a rookie at left tackle who there's a lot of potential.
I like the way he played. I
like his game. He's still a rookie. There's going to be some growing pains there. Their guard situation at left guard, losing Joe Thuney is not what it is with Kingsley. And so they've got more patches to kind of fix, even with Pat playing like Pat, where he's going to have to kind of go Superman a little bit. And I made this comment during the game against the Chargers. He looks quick. We're so used to Pat being banged up and limping around on one or two bad ankles. Listen, he's still one of the most elite athletic quarterbacks in the game. We understand that. But their offense as a whole, to me, doesn't strike fear anymore. And so not striking fear is in the regular season not the same as not striking fear versus Buffalo, Baltimore, and then ultimately whoever is in the AFC and whoever's in the Super Bowl. And to me, that's where their legacy is, because they're a dynasty, a championship caliber organization, and it feels like they have lost a little bit of that shine so far this year. And that Week 1 game, it's in a weird situation in Brazil. I get that, so we'll see how they bounce back. But to me, it's the pieces that aren't there, that there's not really a whole lot of help coming for them. And so I wonder what it's going to look like moving forward.
The only thing I'll say to that is Patrick Mahomes has yet to take a single snap under center in a regular season game with Worthy, Brown, and Rice available. That still hasn't happened. Now, if you get all those three guys on the field, I think we'll look at the Chiefs very differently.